And we are live. Good morning, everyone. This is a big good morning from Integral University. We welcome all the listeners of this YouTube channel that we are having here, a live webinar on the topic Industry 4.0. The theme will be uh, artificial intelligence and related technologies. And today we have another speaker with us, Dr. Sian Lun Lau, and a brief introduction will be given by Dr. Imranullah Khan about him. So I give the stage to Dr. Imranullah, and he'll take over the stage now. So. Sir, आपका mic mute है. You can begin again.
Sorry. On behalf of Department of Electronics and Communication, Integral University, Lucknow, I have the honor to invite Dr. Sian Lun Lau, Associate Dean and Head Academics, Department of Computer Science and Network System, Faculty of Science and Technology, Sunway University, Singapore, Malaysia. We have familiar with the sir. He is also keynote speaker in our IEEE conference, and a very interactive section was there. And today's the topic of the sir is 30 years ubiquitous computing. So I request Shan sir to kindly take over the stage. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your you spare time from your busy schedule. Thanks a lot, sir. Shan sir, your mic is mute. Shan sir.
I think that's something we do a lot, right? Whose mic is muted nowadays. First of all, thank you, Dr. Imran, for the invitation and also the opportunity to speak to the student staff and also those who follow this channel. And a big thank you to Integral University. I still remember the time I was invited to visit your university and gave a talk. It was a memorable experience. And thank you for sponsor of the event. I think it's really good that even there's a pandemic going on, we can still use technology to allow us to share, to learn. And today I'm happy that I got the chance to share this topic called 30 years ubiquitous computing, because it's something I'm rather passionate about. We're working on this since 2000 plus, and it's something I still look forward for future development. And I hope the sharing will give you some insights on the history, and then later what's happening today, and we will look into what will happen in the future. And again, for those who tune in to the YouTube live, I'm Sian Lun Lau. I'm from Sunway University. You can see I'm part of the HUMAC Research Center, and I'm also the head of department and also the associate dean for the school. So as I move, let me get the technology working. So a little bit about myself, not to bore you. I got in touch in this area, ubiquitous, because I went over to Germany for my postgraduate study, and it's there that I learned about ubiquitous computing. And ever since, I've been working on areas related to Ubicom, context awareness. And when I came back to Malaysia, I work at a city called Sunway City, and that's where we want to build a smart and sustainable city. And again, many things that you probably are interested in about AI and machine learning is where we use technology to build innovative solutions for a future city that we all dream for. And what you may expect from this lecture, I think I will summarize it as first, we are not here to kind of predict the future, but I hope what we may get is the views from the visionaries, those who did this work since 30 years. And I think it's always good for us in the academia and industry to see where the research is leading us towards and how some of this work, even they have become part of our lives. I think that is the exciting part. Okay, so a picture to begin with. I think communication started a long way, and you can see even last time when there's only smoke-based communication, there's still ways to do wireless. But jokes aside, I think today, if you didn't realize, we are already living in this era called the internet era. And one thing I think it's an exciting time, even though we know this year is probably very different due to the pandemic, but it's exciting because all kinds of technology are coming our way. If you can see this chart clearly, which I've taken that from Gartner, it's this Gartner hype cycle, and you can see there are all this technology moving towards the peak, and those who made it through the peak, that goes through the inflated expectation. If you look at the part of the screen here in the middle, and you can see 5G is on top, that it's now coming to the part where it will become something that you and I will use. And I think it is exciting because all these new technology are changing how we live and how we deal with many things every day. And when it comes to this topic, ubiquitous computing, I'm not sure how familiar you are with this term, but when it comes to this word that even I took some time to pronounce it correctly, ubiquitous, it actually means it's found everywhere. And I want to ask this question for you to think about is, can technology be omnipresence, that you can see it everywhere, you find it everywhere? Or maybe if we look around what we do today, maybe we are already in such a world. And when it comes to ubiquitous computing and why 30 years, I would like to introduce this person called Mark Weiser. In 1990 is where he proposed this idea in the paper, The Computer for 21st Century. And he said this word called, the most profound technology are those that disappear, and they weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they are indistinguishable from it. I think his vision was how computer can be omnipresence, means you have computer everywhere, and it's not about the physical computer that you touch, that you use, but that computer is working for you everywhere, and more importantly, you are using computing without consciously interacting with it. In other words, he's looking 30 years ago, he's thinking about a computer that will be invisible to their users. And for those who are interested to look up more, some keywords that began, when he proposed that in the 90s and 2000, you can see another term quite popular called pervasive computing, right? There are even journals based on Ubicom and pervasive computing, and I strongly encourage you look up those journals, very nice ones. There are people who work on this thing called ambient intelligence. It's also another term quite close, similar to ubiquitous computing, and some even call this calm and invisible computing. So I think it's Mark Weiser who put this picture out that people start thinking, whatever they do, it doesn't mean Mark was the first person, who started the first work, but he saw what people are doing around that time. That people are working on sensors, people are working on, wireless technology, and he was proposing and foreseeing that future will come one day. So today is about 30 years since 1990 when he proposed that, and I wonder throughout the talk, do you see that future is coming nearer and nearer? So what he proposed with the idea of ubiquitous computing is how the interaction between a person and a device, it can be a computer, it can be a device, will become more intuitive and more natural. And it's not just about interaction between computer, it changes how the computer scientists together with people in Ubicom or even engineers, that they keep thinking about what ways we can innovate and create new technology that can make such a environment a reality. And today, if you ask me, I can already tell you some of this invisible technology is happening. If you look at cloud, you look at how AI is working, you look at all these intelligent speakers, Siri, you look at Alexa, Google Home, they are giving you a taste of it today. So 4 characteristics of Ubicom, if you want to come into this area, you may want to look into this. First, the computer must be connected, right, to each other, and it has to be distributed and even transparently accessible. If I may even add the word always connected, always distributed, and always transparently accessible. And the interaction, how we work with computers today may be still quite manual. You have to key into your keyboard, you have to type, but one day you'll be more, not even verbal, it can be even gesture. when you do something, the computer understands what you want. And that's where computers will be autonomous. It will behave, it will react just based on what you do. You are seeing some of these too, right? And I think computer will also demonstrate a higher level of ability in their adaptation. That's what we mean by dynamic action and interaction. So if all this description gives you some picture, I wonder if this is what you are thinking, something that you see in movies, right? Is that kind of future we are looking at? And when we look at this picture, maybe what people think about more is actually the one in the middle. Would that be the future where robots take over our lives? I wouldn't know whether that future will come, but I do know one thing, and I always tell students, we are the one who will make that future we want, and we have to avoid those kind of movie-like, end days come, but we have to make technology that will help us in everyday life, and that's how we would love to move towards a world where, we enjoy and become better, more efficient through technology. So if you look at the 30 years, coming back to the topic, there are basically 3 decades, you can split them. And I kind of call the first decade as the connected devices decade. And then later come 2000, where we start working on the awareness of the devices. And it's since 2010 that you see more about this thing called smartness. And I hope when I put up different projects, you also agree with me of these 3 decades, 3 categorization of the phases. In the 1990s, you see Mark Weiser in his lab. That's where he worked, in the Xerox Park Lab. They started working on little devices like the one on the left. The one in the middle is a tablet. That's long before we all know about smartphone, iPhone, tablets. They are already working on different ways that you can interact with portable device, all the way to a wall-based. That's the live board on the right-hand side. And that's how they imagine you can interact with devices through, writing, through talking, and so on. And I think that gives people an impression how to build technology that is close to that probably they never imagined. In 10 years' time, we have the first, touch-based smartphone or iPod at the time. That's how much time it takes. So with this, you can see in places like Cambridge, in Olivetti, right? They built things called active badge, where people can carry one of this black or white color device as they walk to different rooms. There will be beacons that will detect them, and that's how people know where a person is located at any time. Okay, so active badge, this picture, I took it when I went to Cambridge last year, and it's amazing that things I read on paper, I can see them live. It's in the exhibit, kind of like mini museum in the computer lab, right, in Cambridge, their computing department. And, you can see these devices were the one they use. From the active badge, they move into active bed, which I'll give you the next picture, where they use ultrasound and radio technology to do rather accurate positioning. So this is what you can see. So by putting arrays of sensors, when the person move about with this device carried with him, now the environment can sense and say this person is exactly at this corner of the room. And I think that's the beginning of indoor localization, where people say, can I actually know where a person is, right? And the closest you see in the movie is the Harry Potter movie, where, there's a map showing who, where the person is. And about 20 over years ago, people start exploring, investigating such technology. And a little bit further from the UK, you have now in Germany, in Karlsruhe, where a team people, like Gallison, Beiger, they built everyday devices with all this little embedded system on it. And that's where they explore how, that cup that you use wherever you go actually sense what you are doing. And again, this information, the system will know. So whenever they can sense where this cup is, we also know what that person is doing, where this person is. You can see all these different sensors are things people build in order to explore what can be sensed, how can the system actually know what's happening. And that's the beginning, I think, of the first 10 years. When it comes to 2000, when you can collect more data, people start asking, if I now know all these things, what can we do? Microsoft Research built a very nice indoor localization system using Wi-Fi signal. And the idea is we need to know where a person is. And I think this concept is quite important even today, because we are human. We live in this physical environment. Our location tells what we do. And based on that, systems, the environment can adapt based on a location information. And you can see another person in Microsoft Research work on this device that he carries everywhere, right? And that probably is the first kind of portable camera system that will take pictures wherever he goes. And again, they built this system to see whether there are contextual data that these pictures can tell. So imagine if now you can see where this person have gone throughout, the day. Can you then summarize what he has done so far? Okay, at that time, we are not talking about smartphone, right? There's no cloud computing in order to understand what's happening. So all these things will happen more offline, but people are already explore what can you do, what can you see. I think it's about the time, and that's also where I began my PhD study, where we then start exploring things about context awareness. And if you look at any literature, I think you will see people quoting Professor Day, right? He's in University of Washington now, and he's mentioned this context definition that I think is probably one of the most used definition in our research. And I think it kind of tell people, if you want to use sensors to understand, you need to characterize the situation. And with that, you can now make applications, you can build services that will act based on this context information, which is true. Many times, knowing that the person is standing or sitting is nice, but why is he standing? Standing in a car, in a bus, and standing in front of the elevator, and standing in your office, they all give different contextual meaning. And as human, we can understand that. But if a computer sees some of this information, they still need to understand and reason what are the high-level contexts that you can capture, so that this person is in a rush because he's waiting in front of the elevator and he's late for meeting, right? So this is what we do in context awareness that fits into this invisible computing environment, where we also try to see, can computer understand more than just sensor data? So you can see at that time is where people start looking into wearable computing, right? Like a few example, Huawei and Intel, you have Kian in 2004, 2007, they start building these small sensors that you can get signals like the one I showed in the middle. And it's through this signal, we try to apply machine learning. And you can see this work, they built either with 5 sensors or 12 sensors all around the body to explore which part of this body and also which sensor can give signals that once you build machine learning models, they can help people to detect what that person is doing at a given time. And around 2000, towards the end, is where some of us, I think the few I quoted here, you have Young and Lau and David is me, my professor. We start looking into how to use mobile phone in order to capture such activity. You have Ravi slightly earlier, 2008, 2009, working on things like iPad with an embedded system. But that time, we argue, instead of using multiple sensors, how about even one single unit, like a smartphone, right? And at that time, we do not have our Android phone or even iPhone, and what we had was the Nokia N95, 97. And we managed to see even a single smartphone with the right algorithm, you can actually perform all this reasoning. That smartphone itself can actually carry out all these tasks, measurement, and even interpretation of data. And now the system actually know what you're doing at a given time. So it's about 2010, you can see smartphone even become one of the more popular platform, which I think until today is still one of the popular platform for us to do more research in sensor, ubiquitous computing, and related areas. And I think now we are moving towards the third decade, where you can see now wearable computing is no longer just a lab device. You see things that we may carry, a Fitbit device that tells you not just time, but also whether you are working, do you work out enough? What's your heart rate when you go from places to places? Google Glass sadly is stopped, right? But Google Glass was a nice platform to show people that you can even go everywhere with an extra pair of eyes telling you, recording things, that you can interact with the system just through, very natural gesture. So I hope something like Google Glass will come back. So the closest that people have today is the HoloLens that, again, do quite wonderful things. You get the third device. If you can see, that's an EEG portable device. Of course, you won't want to wear this everywhere. But the most modern one I see now is as small as a headband that you can put. And again, with EEG, it will now dig into what your brain activity is telling the system. And finally, on the right hand side is actually a smart ring, right? A ring that can detect your heart rate, okay? And whenever you go, the ring will keep track of your sleep patterns, your health, and up to, that device is no longer a device. You really think that ring is a computer. Imagine a small thing like this. You probably don't feel that it's detecting, but it is doing the job for you. I think that is the closest we have today that gives you the feeling that you have a computer somewhere, it's doing the job for you, but you won't need to feel it and sense it or even interact with it explicitly, but naturally these devices are doing it. And one part before I move on is the cloud technology, I think, that allows us to do this in such a wonderful way, right? Before cloud came, to do this kind of research was quite difficult or manual, but with cloud now, you can see sending information to the cloud, running the modeling, all this are really way easier compared to previously. So today, if I want to conclude what or where we are, I think a few things you should take home and start thinking about it. First, I no longer call it Internet of Things. I probably want to call it Internet of Everything, right? Everything, if there's a way you can connect it to internet, that may even include your fridge at home. What if your fridge actually knows you're running out of eggs? You need to buy new vegetable for tonight. The fridge can actually detect that if you build the right technology on it, and if it's connected to the internet, you have a smart fridge, right? If you have all these devices that you wear, they are kind of Internet of Everything that gives new opportunity. Along the topic of this 1 week seminar, we talk about Industry 4.0, Industry Revolution 4.0. Do not think when the word industry appear, it must be manufacturing, right? Actually, anything that includes AI, includes big data, includes use of sensors, includes automation, they are part of this industry revolution. So even in businesses, we are looking into what IR4 can change how business will work. Even in education, throughout this pandemic time, we have run so many things over the internet. It's part of Industry Revolution 4.0 now. And I think people who provide the technology, they are again looking at ways that can push the limit further, that we can do this even more naturally. So while lives are impacted, we all agree, but technology has also been maybe in a way encouraged or even forced to go faster so that it will cope with the needs. And then that's how we can recover faster too. And finally, last 10 years, big data was pretty hyped, but I think this decade, people do know better what we can do with big data analytics. And I think this is that future that will be powered with these few things that previously people may not know what's ubiquitous computing, but today in these three forms, IoT, Industry Revolution, big data, they actually are part of this vision in the ubiquitous computing. That's my view. But now you see more concrete things that people can use, can apply, and I think that is where things is getting very exciting. I'm going to show you a short video now. You might have heard about Amazon Go. If not, then I hope this video gives you an impression what is happening in the States, because the stores have been set up last year, and this is what people can go and experience now. Let me just go to the video. Can you hear the audio?
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
Okay, I hope the video was clear enough. And if you have never seen this, I remember seeing this a few years ago the first time, and I'm so impressed because can it really happen? You know, I go into the shop and I don't need to meet anyone. I'll just pick up my stuff and I just go. That shop, that whole environment knows what I'm doing inside. And put away the part we talk about privacy, you know, how creepy it is that, you know, people can see what we are doing, or at least the system can think that. Just look at if we are well protected, if this is what the system can do, it feels like future. Okay, and you heard the term they use there. This is where they apply even things that people use for self-driving cars, and they use it in a shopping environment. And that is the kind of future we are looking at. So when it comes to this future, I think these are topics you have to see how what we used to call research in ubiquitous computing, because it sounded very academic. When it comes to real life, we are actually looking at this kind of environment. You have manufacturing, you mix things with machines, you mix all this technology with artificial intelligence, control system and sensors. You now have a not only automated manufacturing line, but a line that is intelligent enough that these systems can actually, in a way, give you the ability of self-healing. And I'm not talking about they can go to see doctors when they are not well, but a system may know that certain parts are not working well, that can ask the engineers to make replacement before the manufacturing line start producing products that are, let's say, with errors, right? Like in the car manufacturing line, there are things that are high precision, and the blade, even by deviating a certain millimeter, will produce parts that will be rejected. And such kind of intelligent system can even tell and say, it's time to replace the blade tomorrow because, you know, the blade is going to wear out soon, right? Don't have to go that far in manufacturing. Imagine in your home, if you can actually sense that which light bulb will go off tomorrow, you could have changed it tonight, right? Then your house will never go dark and you have to struggle, you know, in darkness trying to swap the lamp. I think this is that kind of intelligence manufacturing, industry automation will really need. And other than just manufacturing, you can even see the whole supply chain can be made intelligent, where you now have from manufacturing, the sensing, the intelligence, all the way to sales, transportation, logistic, and even up to the part where you have servicing, you have a tracing of products performance at your customer, that those feedback will come back to manufacturing to know how to improve your product as you go. I remember watching another video many years ago where they said, what if you can produce cars that have all these sensors, and constantly anything that is wrong with the car is uploaded back to the manufacturer, that even a product recall, or if there's any danger with any product failure, will be detected early before someone get into an accident. I think that is the kind of future that we can maybe have, not just higher efficiency, but also higher safety, higher intelligence, that people love those products because they are safe, right? That's why put all this together, we still have to take care of privacy and safety, but if those are taken care by the law, right, then all this technology can really help us in improving, you know, not just productivity, production, profit, but also this comfort in our daily lives. And one more thing I like to share is this thing called business process automation, where when you have all this information you can collect through the vision of ubiquitous computing, how do we make automation based on, let's say, situation? Can we actually understand conversation? Not we, but the computer. Can a HR hiring understand how to filter, how to select candidates, how to differentiate genuine candidates from those who are lying, right? These are things with AI, with the ability to collect more data and understand them. you can work out such things. I think the bottom line, without going through the details, anything that you find that is repeating today, anything that you are doing the same thing again and again, those things will be automated very soon, especially when you have digitization, you have the AI kicking in. I think that is the future you are looking at. And we just can't avoid this topic called big data analytics and AI in business, because other than data is the new oil, it's actually big data that can now even help us to automate and have better understanding, or in the big data term, the term is called insights. How much more can you now understand about certain business productivity based on the data they produce? And not only from the business itself, you can talk about software and hardware. Do you realize certain departments are using their devices wrongly, right? All these are information you can collect, and what kind of insights can you draw out of it? I think that is that kind of process people are looking at. So just to give you some impression, these are the kind of data you will get from the conventional transactional data that we already know, but even with machine data. And what people are really working on is now combine that with the social media, which is really, in my own words, crazy, because the amount of data you can see and can make use from the social media, the potential is tremendous. The only thing is we still don't know what to do with them. So how to find these insights, I hope we are working on it. This gives you the motivation, how to combine these different sources of data, that they help the computing system and human to understand better what we should do next. So I think to kind of summarize some of the examples, it can be called big data or AI, but you can see CCTV analytics, something definitely doable today, from counting how many people in the department store to what they do there, so that you can serve them better. You talk about audio analytics, you talk about medical analytics, you talk about social media influence. Of course, using it the right way is important. Don't use it to manipulate people. I think that's something we want to avoid, right? And product recommendations, so on, that will help business to be more efficient, more targeted, and help them to sustain longer too. And I think coming to the end of all these examples, autonomous system is something that will come. Since 5 years, you're already talking about self-driving cars, unmanned vehicles. And if you do not know, in US and in also Guangzhou in China, there are already licensed self-driving cars that are allowed to drive in a certain city. So you can have autonomous taxi to drive people around without drivers. They are legal, right? So that means they do get the permission, they are tested, and this is just the beginning. Imagine in cities everywhere, if it comes to taxi, no longer you need a driver, right? We all know we are talking about, then how about jobs that the taxi drivers may need? But I think that's the time we should train them and allow them to do other jobs than sitting in the car driving people around and get tired, right? So that's another perspective. I think drone is something very big. So having unmanned aerial devices that can fly around, do things, will be something in the future. What you see in news and all these things about drones sending products, they are just a small part of it. I know agriculture use drone quite a lot to do surveillance of crops, product health of the plants. Using drones to detect illegal activities, far away. All these are things people are looking into. And even buildings automation is some kind of autonomous system. And in Ubicom, we already talk about using that to understand how healthy is a building, and how can this building again be self-aware to tell the building operator, to tell its residents what people should do. So I think this is just some example of a complex system, but they really help us to understand how far we can push the limit, right, of putting different sensors, computing power in such a small package, in that sense, connect that to the cloud, that they can perform tasks just like human, seeing and sensing things around us without problem. And I think one part coming to the end is we should also come to technology that can help us to contribute to sustainability. I think here, when you talk about self-driving cars, autonomous system, we are really looking into safety. We're looking into logistic transportation that can make logistic more sustainable. And then, all these things, business model will change the way we live. Maybe number of cars can be better managed when they're all coordinated and managed, centralized. I think that's all these possibilities. And I think finally, robot is something that I'm putting a bet on it, that you will also have more of them. I don't really see them being as human-like, but they'll be a very good companion for a long time to help us in everything we do. So you have robots in manufacturing, they are stationary, but now coming to robots that go around with you, walk with you, or like the one in the second picture, a lawnmower or vacuum cleaner, up to the very extreme case of Boston Dynamic that you see, the robot that will never fall down. They will come. The whole thing is, are we building robots the right way that will help us in our daily lives? So I think I've given some of this example how drones, robots can take care. Like now with COVID around, we hope maybe robots can be the one delivering food, disinfecting the room, not putting human at risk. Yeah, that will be some kind of examples we can really push forward, and maybe that will be the new normal we are looking at. So I think when it comes to this topic, right, we definitely want to look into this thing called human-machine collaboration. Because I think in the future, no matter it's a physical robot or a computing system that can be so intelligent, we have to look into how human and machine can work together. And that's also the reason at Sunway University we set a research center focusing on this. We also welcome either students who come and pursue postgraduate or researcher collaborating with us to work on such area. Welcome you to contact me if you are interested to explore any topics related to human-machine collaboration. Yeah, I look forward to welcome you. So to close the talk, looking at the time, yes. Yeah, how should we be ready? I have summarized something to maybe give you as a fruit for thoughts. I think all of us have to really think carefully and very clearly why we need to be ready. Yeah, technology will always be there. And I think the last thing I hope will happen is we'll be too hyped for it. Or secondly is we keep thinking about how much money we can make. I think we should really move away from the money. We should and still should make money out of the technology we build, but we need to understand what kind of future, what kind of things that can solve real problems. And I think with that, then this thing about money will still come our way. And more importantly is, are we contributing to the society, no matter where we are? And for you, especially if you are students, please think about what kind of skills you can learn, because without the right skill, you can't contribute to the growth, right, to the technology development as much as we hope. So are you ready to work on it? Do you have the right people skill other than technical skills? Or are you entrepreneurial enough, right? Do you think of new ideas that you can start up, new business, work with people? I think that will be that future we really hope you can look into. And it's not just about us, university teaching you. We all should work together with also industry, that we find suitable environment. We prepare everyone, including you, me, and we can learn together. And that's where I want to come to this line as a closing. Lifelong learning is very important, especially with technology. Technology change every day. Whatever you learn today in year one may be outdated the time you graduate. But if you keep reading, you'll know how to learn. You will always know how to use the latest technology, use them correctly. And I think that's where we are ready for the future. So I think I'll close my talk with this line. We forget about the past. They should not hold us back. We should look forward to the future and for the best things to come. And I think Ubiquitous Computing has started 30 years of this journey, and we are living at an exciting time. I'm even thinking we are now moving. I agree with Professor Andrew Ng from Stanford and Google. He said we are now in the AI era, or we're moving towards the AI era. So are we ready for it? I think we should be. And I think we can do a lot of exciting things together. Okay, with that, I thank you for your attention. This is a kind of quick 45 minutes of the summary of Ubiquitous Computing. And I look forward to any questions you have. And these are also ways you can contact me, right? And I look forward to receive any message from you. Thank you very much.
So we are having some questions from our viewers.
Yep.
Should we take them one by one?
Yep, okay.
Okay, sir. This one's from on your screen, sir.
Yep, okay. So Syed asked a very good question. In order to understand AI, is it necessary to study or work on embedded system? I would say, first of all, for academic purpose, you understand AI, but once you know how to use AI, AI will do the understanding for you. So that's the good thing. But if we are learning, the basics, the fundamental, I think embedded system may not be necessary unless you would like to optimize your AI to be implemented on resource limited devices. That means you want to build a chip that can do certain modeling very well. Then, of course, the understanding on AI and even things you learn in engineering like microcomputer, right, circuit design, they help you to embed all this algorithm, the model you build into a microchip, right? And that chip can now perform all this calculation, the AI that we call, more efficiently. There are cases where those customized chip will do, just like the one you use on your phone. Like now, some of the smartphone has AI chip inside to help you to optimize photos you take, right? Those are things will be more on the embedded. But generally, there's another direction that is not like this. Then you don't really need embedded system because you are talking about building AI in a very large cluster. Then you may need to learn something like called cloud computing. You might need to learn things that are closer to deep learning that will also have their own tensor platform that you use, right? The TPUs. So, yeah, I think it comes back to where you want to apply AI. Yeah, I will answer that way.
So we move on to next question.
Yep.
Okay. On your
So
screen, sir.
Shafiq, you say will autonomous system, human machine collaboration, AI, I think we will be dependent on technology, like it or not. Like how often we leave home and we say, "Oh, I forgot my smartphone and I have to run back and take my smartphone." Today we e-wallet, even not bringing your wallet and money is okay, but you must have your smartphone around. I would rather say, do we build it in a way that human no longer can perform? I think that would be a problem. So I personally think it's not the technology that make you dependent, but if you allow yourself to be dependent, like let's put it back to the study environment. How students, when they have Wikipedia, they stop learning, they just copy and paste from internet. It's not Wikipedia and make you lazy, but you choose to use technology to make things easy for you. I think if we still understand we are using technology, then letting technology take over our lives, we won't be dependent, but we will appreciate having technology to make our lives easy, which is what we do as technologists. I think you and I, we are in engineering, computer science. We make technology to make lives better, not that people become dependent. Yeah. So it's good sometimes to just put your phone away, go out and do the hike, go for jogging without any devices, detox yourself from technology so that we remember we are still human, we are in control, and we can live quite well without technology. Yeah. Okay, I think this is the part people ask about. Hamad asked a good question.
Still having
How
a
is it
common query.
related? Yeah, I saw the next one. AI is part of this ubiquitous computing vision, right? And I must admit, ubiquitous computing is actually more an academic term because that's what we do in research. But if without AI, without machine learning, the environment ubiquitous computing is in will never have the ability to be invisible, right? Because how can a computer know you are sitting there having a heart attack, right? There must be some AI there that can detect your movement, the situation you are in, it's dangerous, and then understand that maybe you are suffering from heart attack and therefore call the doctor for you. That will be AI in play in this kind of ubiquitous computing scenario. Yeah, so you should probably see that ubiquitous computing can be that big area. AI is part of it that empowers those kind of ubiquitous computing situation. Yeah, actually, I think this question is similar to what I've answered. How do you relate that? A core part of ubiquitous computing is to use data you can collect from the sensors and also available in the system, and now use AI to build models that can give that intelligence and that invisibility, right, into the ubiquitous computing environment. Yeah, so they are probably interchangeable, but it's also part of the Ubicom vision. Oh yes, I like this question. Mukunda, that's very good. Quantum computing, will it have significant impact? I think so. I don't think it will replace, but it will open up a new branch that you can deal with big data differently. Yeah, because at the current state, quantum computing is solving problem quite differently from how the conventional way is doing it with big data. Just like how big data is solving problem differently from the conventional machine learning analytics that can be done without big data, right? I think it's probably improvement, but I don't think they're created to replace. They solve problem that the others are not able to solve. Quantum computing will be very promising because things that currently, even with big data, is still too complex to solve. People in quantum computing is actually hoping that quantum is the, like holy grail that will solve this limitation of the current technology. Yeah, I would say yes. If you have interest, look into quantum. Is one of the emerging, the if you remember the hype cycle, is probably at the left hand side climbing up. But I know quite some people, including some of my friends, my junior, I remember in IBM in the North America, they are still working very hard on quantum computing, and seeing what's happening next. Yeah, so it's a good area. Very good. You are looking into it. I personally think, Ayan, thanks for the question. It has been 30 years. It's crazy that even I have looked at this thing more than 15 years. It's just a little bit hard to explain how it will be like in 20 years. I coach you, a friend of mine in the industry said that in our area of study, computing and engineering is probably one of the saddest area because whatever we may create in this lifetime will end up in a museum before we die. I wouldn't say would it still be there, but whatever that we can build on top of ubiquitous computing will continue to grow. It may come in another name. Like 10 years ago, I start seeing big data, all these things coming in. But when we look at the underlying technology, they are basically what we do in ubiquitous computing 10 years ago. So I think technology will evolve, just like 4G going to 5G. Names will change, but you will see that progression from very basic 30 years ago with sensors, with machine learning, AI, coming to today. I think this trend, where I already said the AI era has started, they will continue to stay there. So what you are looking at is what I just said, Internet of Everything, having AI, deep learning everywhere, even though I don't think deep learning can solve or is needed to solve every single problem, but it will be an important technology. So you are really looking at the computing environment, no matter you call it UbiCom or not, that whatever you do everywhere, the system knows what's happening and constantly giving you assistance, support, right? And I think that's that kind of life you're living in. And today we're not too far. Looking at what Google is doing with Google Phone. If you allow me, I'll give you this example. When I came back to Malaysia 7 years ago, even after 2 weeks of driving to work, Google actually know that I'm going to work and going home. The phone actually shows that, are you going home now? I've never told my phone anything. That is that kind of future you're looking at. More than just home or not, but the system, the environment will know better what you're doing. Yeah.
My question, sir.
Yeah, Piyush, that's a good question. I think we always think they're stealing our data. I'm not working for Google. I'm not a fan of giving them more data. So I state my disclaimer. But if we look at this world today, we are not really using free services from Google or Facebook. We are paying them with our data. So they don't really steal them per se, but definitely they request data from us, you like it or not, and they give us free services. And the best is through those free services, they get your data. Yeah. So saying that they steal data is not really fair because you did say okay to give them the data. And as I talk to some people here, they say we have no choice. If I don't give this data, I can't use the service, but I need it. Yeah. So the part that this question, I think we should look at it is, what should we do, especially for the government and also the law enforcer, to set very good policies and laws that can protect our safety and privacy. I think with a proper law system, at least we can control some of this data. Or else, actually having a company storing this data and protecting it is not the issue. The issue is when someone managed to break into Google and steal it. That's where things become bad. Data has been stored by many people. Like your bank knows you very well. Your healthcare provider knows you very well. They didn't steal your data. They just have your data. And the problem happens when someone hacked into the healthcare system and took your data. I think that is probably the bigger problem than whether Google steal your data or not. Of course, I think there are cases where they didn't tell us they're collecting the data. I think they could have been a bit more transparent. Yes, that I would agree. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
One more question. I think
Yep.
it will be the last of this session.
No problem. Yeah. Oh yes, they do. You should see Google Assistant as a kind of, we call it a smart assistant, kind of like AI bot, right? That becomes an interface between you and also the brain behind the technology. And to put it to today's topic, the Google Assistant is that element, that software that gives you a feeling you're not talking to a computer. They will get better that you think you're talking to a human, which is the AI. So how can this Google Assistant become so human-like? That's where AI is there, right? The machine learning is there to learn and to allow this device to behave as if you're talking to a person, okay? If you have attended or listened to my talks about AI, at this point, I daringly say most smart systems, they are still good in mimicking and repeating what humans do, that you feel they are human-like. What they do not have is actually the ability to show emotion like human, not pretending emotion, but really understand emotion. But will that future come? I do not know. But when machines have emotion, then what's the difference between machine and human? I'm still thinking about this question. So maybe you can think together with me, right? What kind of future? But IoT together with AI, they cannot be separated, because IoT allows you to acquire information through sensors. And with that, you can build machine learning models. You can build AI models that can give either Google Assistant or a robot or a computer system the intelligence that mimic human intelligence. I think that's how they work together. That will also come into this big picture of either you call it ubiquitous computing or even.
Actually, most of the viewers and listeners of this channel are students, young students, and they want to make a career or in higher studies. So, what are the opportunities that Malaysia is offering for such students into the research area?
I think in Malaysia has always tried to kind of push, and I think here you look at the universities, especially the national ones, are really climbing up the ranking, and I think this is a sign to show that we are interested to attract good people to come and do research, to come and build their career, no matter in academia or even in industry. And if you talk about especially why Malaysia, I think is an attractive place because the culture for Asian, if you see our tourism slogan, we always say it's truly Asia, because you have a mix of culture that I think for people from India to come, you feel that you don't feel it's very different. We all speak English, so we can understand each other, and accessibility and distance, everything is still actually quite attractive. And being Malaysia or even Singapore, we are quite attached to the renowned, established institution or countries that, again, through us you get access. So like coming to Sunway, you see that Sunway has a rather different position, that we have good connection to top universities like Oxford, Cambridge. Like last year, I got a grant that I managed to spend some time at the University of Cambridge to talk to people, to talk about research, and it was a very good opportunity. So these are things you will get when you got a opportunity to come over, and I think that may be attractive. On the other hand, I would like to encourage students, sometimes it's not just the location that matters, right? And that's sincerely from me, is the clarity of where you think you want to go, right? That's why earlier you see my slides, I'm encouraging you to ask, why are you doing this? And you can go to a certain place, or even now we already know, even online can give you quite a lot of good knowledge. What you need to do is read, understand them, and see how you can apply them. With that clarity, no matter it's Malaysia, in India, or even you go to the US, UK, it won't be too much different, except one part is the facilities and the environment, right? So I think that is my sincere words for students. It's good to aspire, and opportunities may come, may be delayed, but there are no excuse if you stop learning. Learning is still very important wherever you are. If you have internet, you are connected to the best resource in the world. Without, there's still ways for you to get them. And once you learn well, you have that basics, the world is for you to access anywhere you go. I hope that encourage all of the students that you have the future in your hands, and I really hope you make full use of it. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you for an informative session, sir.
Yeah.
I now request Dr. Imranullah, sir, to extend the vote of thanks to you for
Sorry, I
delivering
was.
this lecture.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your nice and informative session. Thanks for give us your valuable time. You spare 1 hour from your busy schedule. I'm very thankful to you. Sir, can I share your contact information? If
Feel
some
free. Yeah.
want to contact you.
Can, no problem. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for your
Yeah.
genuine. Okay,
Thank
sir.
you again for the
So,
invitation and the opportunity. Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, I now
Yeah.
request all the participants to fill the feedback form that is available in the YouTube description box. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for giving your
Thank you.
valuable time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice
Thanks a
day.
lot, sir.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Bye,
Thanks.
sir.
Stay
Thank you.
safe and take care. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye, sir.